The Last of Us aimed to create a reality that was instantly recognizable and instantly spine-chilling. While its gruesome blood and guts are all virtual, Naughty Dog's talented developers poured real blood, sweat, tears, and office hours into the beloved horror franchise. While The Last of Us doesn't technically take place during a zombie apocalypse, the developers realized early on that players needed some kind of infected enemy to fight against. In the documentary Grounded: The Making of The Last of Us, the game's designers explain that they momentarily considered having the infection at the center of the story simply kill people. But they quickly came to understand that without infected humans to fight, players would never truly feel the impact of the disease. When creating the infected, the developers said they became inspired by watching a documentary that discussed a cordyceps fungus. Cordyceps infects the bodies and brains of insects, taking control of their bodies to move to a more ideal location to grow. The designers leaned into this concept and used pictures of fungal and other infections as inspiration for the game's creatures. They wanted to make the infected look recognizably human while still being obviously overrun by the fungus growing inside them, sometimes even having their faces cleft by sprouting fungal nodes. The result is one of the most iconic and disturbing horror game creature designs of all time. It wasn't enough for the humans and the infected in The Last of Us to feel real. Naughty Dog wanted to create an apocalyptic landscape that felt eerily like a future possibility. In Grounded, Neil Druckmann explains how the team spent time researching what happens to the infrastructure of human cities when there aren't humans around to maintain things. They drew heavily from Alan Wiseman's book, The World Without Us, to develop the flooded, overgrown, and crumbling city landscapes featured in the game. In an interview with Jason Killingsworth, game director Bruce Straley said the team also pulled from images of Chernobyl, Pripyat, and New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. Thanks to the Uncharted franchise, Naughty Dog was no stranger to crafting ruined structures that nature had worked to reclaim. The difference was that the ruins in The Last of Us represent a lost world that most gamers could easily recognize, rather than ancient ruins from an unknown civilization. This made the experience more emotional for players, but it also required Naughty Dog to look at their environments with hopeful eyes. Lead game designer Jacob Minkoff describes in the film an early piece of concept art that showed animals freed from a zoo roaming the ruined cities.
Something that tells you that life goes on, and this world is worth saving.
The design of the world gives players an immediate sense of the importance of Joel's and Ellie's mission, and it turns the studio's green screen sets into a harrowing post-apocalyptic landscape. Video game characters are often hyper-stylized in some way or another. With The Last of Us, however, Naughty Dog set out to create characters that felt like real human beings. Troy Baker, the actor who plays Joel in the game, has talked about how anti-heroes like Joel are typically viewed as a thick-necked mercenary, but that for this game they needed something new. Joel is a hardened survivor, but he ultimately looks like an average man getting on in years. The decision to stay more true to life emphasizes the power that real human individuals have, and it energized the actors who joined the project, including Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie.
To sort of be such a strong female character that is completely normal looking, she is still a total badass, is really exciting to be a part of that.
The image of Ellie as an extremely capable but still learning and growing 14-year-old girl is an essential element of the game for creative director Neil Druckmann, especially since Ellie would eventually become a playable character. Druckmann went on to explain that Naughty Dog had lied about gamers playing as Ellie in the run-up to The Last of Us. The company wanted that to be a surprise and for players to get the chance to connect with her organically, free of any presupposed notions. When it came to actually casting the game, Neil Druckmann admitted some roles were easier to cast than others.
It took us a while to find our Joel, but for Ellie, I think Ashley was the second or third candidate to walk in, and right away we knew.
Ashley Johnson looked and sounded just right for the part, and she related very strongly to Ellie when she first read the script. She said, "I read the scenes, and I was like, I need to play this part." Troy Baker's casting as Joel wasn't as clear of a decision for Druckmann and the others working on the game. Unlike many of the other actors coming to audition, Baker didn't really line up with Joel's look or age.
I walked into the room fully aware that I was the youngest person that they were seeing for this role.
When he started speaking, though, the casting team found themselves convinced he could be right for the job, and his physicality in the audition seemed right for the role. By that point, the casting department had Johnson reading with the actors auditioning for Joel. And when the team saw the chemistry she had with Baker, even against a blank background and without any of the finished game set decoration, it was a done deal. Naughty Dog spent time and money making sure that the team on The Last of Us had high-tech equipment for bringing the game's characters and their world to life. CGI, cameras, and motion capture were obviously a huge focus from the studio. But when it came to filming, there was one thing the studio didn't have. As explained in Grounded, every facial expression in the game is hand-keyed by the animation team. Animators would watch the recording of each actor's performance and use their own tools to create facial expressions on the characters' models. Sometimes they would need to exaggerate certain expressions or gestures. Also, the end result would come through as clearly in the game as they would in real life. When working on The Last of Us Part 2, Naughty Dog upgraded its motion capture tech. The company wanted to allow for the facial and eye movement tracking that had been absent in The Last of Us, which allowed the animators to capture even more detail about the characters and the actors' performances. Behind-the-scenes footage from the sequel shows actors wearing helmets fitted with specialized cameras and having dot matrices marked on their faces to allow a computer to simulate their expressions on a character model. Not every scene makes it into the final product. Plans can change even after filming has begun, and sequences are often trimmed or completely removed in order to help with pacing or continuity. Much like in movie making, sometimes whole video game motion capture sessions are left on the cutting room floor. The Last of Us is no different, as seen in an alternate take of the game's climactic ending that was never fully animated.
You can still do the right thing here. She won't feel anything.
As Neil Druckmann explains, Joel was originally meant to execute Marlene in the ER before rescuing Ellie, rather than meet her for a final confrontation in the hospital's parking garage. Multiple takes of this scene can be viewed in behind-the-scenes footage, showing Troy Baker and the other actors in various stages of distress. This was a very physically demanding sequence, requiring Baker to grab one of the doctors as a hostage before shooting his way out. As seen in the footage, Baker kept dropping his prop gun in the scuffle, necessitating a reset. Ultimately, the choice was made to simply allow the player to choose which of the doctors to shoot, as well as to buy Marlene just a little bit more time. Still, these mocap sessions offer a fascinating glimpse at the finale that could have been. Oh, then there's a musical version. But that's a story for another time.
You can still do the right thing, Joel!
When it was time for work on The Last of Us Part 2 to officially start, the entire team at Naughty Dog knew that they wanted to emphasize the sense of realism that had blown players away in the original game. In addition to adding facial tracking to their recording and giving the game's graphics a boost, the team also went to insane lengths to make the game's environments as true to life as possible. In a behind-the-scenes video, one of the developers recounted the team's trips to Seattle.
We actually got photo scan data of natural elements in the forests and went through and walked the path of Ellie through Seattle to actually get as much reference that we could.
Much like the first game, these references turned the blank sets into a lush and immersive environment. A huge amount of effort went into gathering reference material for the game's design. In the same video, Neil Druckmann explains that the team did research on specific foliage and architectural styles present in the real-world areas that the game simulates. Their efforts make The Last of Us Part 2 feel bigger than its predecessor in every way, while still staying true to the core elements that made the original such an incredible success. For all of its ambition and beauty, The Last of Us was a very stripped-down game that focused on basic mechanics and subtle storytelling. Much of that is true of Part 2 as well, but in some areas, Naughty Dog decided to crank up elements of classic video games. Because of that, The Last of Us Part 2 features a true boss battle in the form of the franchise's most terrifying monster, the Rat King. In an episode of IGN's Art of the Level, character concept artist Hu Young Nam and character concept director Ashley Swedowski detailed the evolution of the Rat King. They started with the basic idea of a hulking mass of trailing bodies hungrily chasing players down, but they weren't sure how large the creature needed to be. Nam said it was Neil Druckmann who first suggested the idea of multiple infected bodies crumbling together to form a new creature, and that gave Nam the idea for the shape of the Rat King. From there, he designed it with the idea that it was a force of nature. By having a group of performers push along a massive frame and act as the various limbs of the creature, they were able to make this impossible beast a reality. Later footage in the episode shows how the Rat King's in-game reveal was based around the audio of the motion capture footage. The designers wanted players to hear the Rat King first, to give them just a second to know something horrible is coming before it arrives. The combination of the actors' audio and timing, along with Nam's and Swedowski's art direction, created the most unforgettable creature in the Last of Us franchise. Most of what happens in the motion capture studio is pretend. As seen in the case of Ellie's signature knife, actors typically hold sticks or plastic props instead of guns and blades. They scale foam blocks instead of walls, and fall onto pads instead of the cold, hard ground. That's partly for safety, of course. No one needs to accidentally get stabbed while filming a fight. But it is also due to the difficulty of capturing details smaller than the movements and gestures of human bodies. Some interactions, though, just can't be faked. Footage from the motion capture sessions for The Last of Us Part 2 show how Naughty Dog created such lifelike animal motions and interactions between humans and animals. The team actually brought horses and dogs into the studio and fitted them with their own makeshift mocap suits to get the movements as realistic as possible. With the help of trained animals, the team behind Part 2 was able to bring in-game animals to life at a whole new level. Plus, who doesn't love seeing dogs in funny outfits?